Hi, I'm Zoe Caldwell. I'm one of the Lexis reps for law schools. I'm here to share with you a little bit of information about what types of research you may encounter while doing a judicial externship or clerkship. So let's talk about what a law clerk does in general. In the appellate courts, a student may end up check citing opinions, observing a lot of oral arguments done, and researching different points of law that may come up in the cases before that judge. In federal district courts, these are trial level courts, and an intern will observe many proceedings. They will have the opportunity to research and write, but these courts are often where students do a lot of observing and perhaps looking up some of the issues that have come before that court that day. In state district courts, students are often assigned to review motions like summary judgment motions and write memoranda to the judge, letting him or her know about the controlling authority. So at any level, the students may be researching different points of law that come before a court, and for sure pulling up cases in bulk of many of the cases being cited in front of that judge. So let's talk a little bit more detail about the appellate clerkship. Once a petitioner has filed for an appropriate and timely appeal, the judge will receive the entire case file to review. Typically, both parties will file a brief outlining the issues that they're appealing. It will have the statement of facts, the controlling case law, and although that these briefs are brought before the court doesn't have to stick to the cases presented to them. They may do their own outside research, which is where their clerks come in. The judge is required, though, to read through the entire trial transcript and determine the facts and issues. So there may be types of law that come out of this trial transcript that the judge would like the clerk to look into a little bit more, or perhaps serve as a jumping off point. The most intensive part of an appellate clerkship is developing the opinion that the judge must put forward for that appeal. And it's critical that the judge and the clerks have a full grasp of the facts and what's relevant to these issues on appeal, to have a really accurate understanding of the law. So a lot of legal research goes into that before this opinion gets created. Also, it's nice to note that many cases will come up on appeal for several issues, and after the decision's made, only the cases which are somehow changing the law get published. And this is where you'll find published cases and unpublished cases. So most of the opinions that judges will create will stay unpublished, but they're still good law. Let's talk quickly about those trial courts. From the perspective of a judicial clerk, the work is similar to the Court of Appeals, but everything's flipped because you're not given the entire case file at the beginning. You actually hear the case and then we'll go through the files and look through the law presented forward in the trial. So it's everything done backwards or inverse from what's going on in the appeals. Most of the time, however, the clerk will be watching, but often a clerk might write memos to help a judge understand some of the controlling facts and law that came before him. All right, so let's talk really specifically now about the legal research. Obviously, a researcher must know how to pull cases and statutes quickly. Anything cited in a brief or memo, a researcher must have to pull very quickly, and they'll have to shepherdize everything. So shepherds becomes a big portion of what a clerk does. A researcher will want to know the most frequently cited cases that pertain to a certain issue, and a lot of that comes back to shepherds again regarding how you do the research. Secondary sources or treatises are also a big part of the clerkship research because we're trying to understand the points of law that are presented. So we're going to look at the legal issue trail on Lexis and perhaps some topic summaries that may pop up from time to time. And every once in a while, clerks may have to do a legislative history, and feel free to reach out to customer support if you find that you're in a position where you need to do a little bit of legislative history. We're not going to go into that there, and it is rare when a clerk needs to do this legislative history, so you can always call customer support. Their phone number is 1-800-45-LEXIS, or you can use the live chat link. All right, let's jump over to Lexis Advance and we'll take a look at some of the research. So we talked about getting cases quickly. Then one of the easiest ways is just to type in the citation that you'll see listed in your documents. So 70 Cal 2nd 15. I don't need these spaces. Actually, I could come through and take these spaces out. Lexis can still read it. And we don't need dots or periods. And up will come the case. Sometimes we're not pulling cases by citation. We need to pull them by name. If you hear your judge rattle off a name of a case quickly and you need to go get it. So we could type in what they tell us. But Lexis isn't given an exact address when we do this, so if we type in the name of a case, we'll need to make sure we're in cases to view that case. And there may be multiple cases that pop up, and we'll need to use process of elimination and the information we have to figure out which is the case to click on without an exact case citation. So it's always best to pull by citation when you have it. Once we're inside a case, let's take a little bit closer look at some of the features that will help you out when you're here. So if I'm going to spend a decent amount of time in this case, one of the things I like to do is open up this About This Document box off to the right side, and we're going to take a look at that legal issue trail. I'm going to go ahead and activate my passages right now, and you'll see that boxes of text in the opinion of this case pop up. These boxes indicate where other cases are citing your case. So they're showing you the legal precedent. Sometimes it may be where your case is citing past law, but most of the time it's when newer cases are citing your case. So if we're trying to find out a little bit more about any of these passages of text and we want to know, well, what cases were citing my case regarding that issue? We just click inside any of the boxes, and Lexis will give us a list of those cases. In this instance, People Be Slightly cited the Hovey case, and these are the cases that cited People Be Slightly for that particular issue. So it's a way to kind of branch your research out as well. The reason why I like the legal issue trail, it helps me see the passages of text that are most important in a case, and all I have to do is turn it on using the About This Document Legal Issue Trail button. I'll give you some tips that will help you move around the screen a little bit faster. Oftentimes when you're given a case, you might be given an exact quote and page number where you can find that quote. So we can use this button at the top of the page and type in the page number that you're given or the pinpoint site. And so I just type in 543, and Lexis will jump me down immediately to page 543. You'll see it there, and I'm looking at this page, and of course this starts page 544. I can use this black arrow. It will zip me back up to the top, so that's a time saver. And I can also use any of these little head notes to jump me down to find where that head note lies in the actual opinion as well. Let's spend some time talking about shepherds now. It's a big part of a clerkship. You'll be using shepherds a lot. So you know that shepherds is a way to check to see if your case is still good law. But we can actually use shepherds for a lot more than that. But quickly, let's review to see if this case is good law. I can do that by just taking a look at my shepherds box off to the right, and I'm looking for any negative treatment here. I do see a yellow triangle, which is cautionary analysis. That means that there is one case out there that's distinguishing itself from People v. Slightly. That means they're saying their facts are different, so they don't need to follow the law in People v. Slightly. They're not saying anything negative about the law. our case is still good law when you see a yellow triangle. In fact, I can see here that there are 51 cases out here that are actually citing People v. Seitley as good law. I can open up my Shepard's report by clicking Shepardize this document, and I can click any of these links as well to get straight to that treatment. I'm going to click Shepardize this document right now, and we're going to open up our Shepard's report. Okay, inside our Shepard's report, you'll notice that we have several tabs. I'm on the Citing Decisions tab. These are all the cases that have cited People v. Seitley, and there are 808 of them. You'll notice that I have all the same narrowing features that I may find everywhere else on Lexis. I can narrow by date. I can narrow by specific terms that I type in. I can narrow by specific headnote if I know that headnote 6 is the one that pertains to my legal issue. I can narrow by the type of analysis that's being mentioned, whether or not what case has been discussed from a certain court, and the type of treatment that they've been given. So these are different ways to narrow a Shepard's report and look at specific features of the report. Other things listed here are other citing sources. This is really helpful for clerks because this is going to lead you to other citing sources that cite People v. Seitley. So really, I use this the most when I'm trying to get to secondary sources or treatises that talk about my case. When I click on treatises, I'm going to see secondary sources that are talking about the law that I need. It's a great backdoor way into finding good secondary sources. You're going to be given a lot of case names from your case files, and one way to find secondary sources is to Shepardize them and then go on out to a secondary source that is in your Shepard's report and find out more about the law and, of course, other cases that cite your case that you might find in that secondary source. Table of authorities. This is helpful so you know what type of precedent has been cited in People v. Seitley. This is a list of all the cases People v. Seitley are citing. So you have that in one spot. The appellate history tells you more about how People v. Seitley went through the court system. So it's going to give you an idea of how it traveled through the courts, the prior proceedings that this case saw. And you may or may not need any of this. Depends if the case went up for further analysis since the point that you dropped into this case. Okay, let's go back to the main screen on Lexis and take a look at how we run a search on Lexis when you just have terms or a legal concept that you're trying to look up. Let's type in some terms. I typed in deliberate or premeditate and murder. You'll see that when I need the word or, I just type it. So if I don't care which term the judge uses in an opinion, then I'll use the word or between them. So deliberate or premeditate. And somewhere else in the document, I want to see the term murder. I could be a little more specific here and change that and to a /p, which means same paragraph. And that just will help me find more refined cases because I know my terms are close together. The judge had some sort of discussion about those terms together. I'm running the search. Running the search, you'll see most of you will land in the cases department. I can easily change that to a different place on Lexis by clicking secondary materials or any statutes that have to do with the search I ran. I'm going to go into secondary materials right now and show you how to find some treatises or some good secondary sources you can use to help you understand the law of your search. Under category, you'll see treatises. That's one of the easiest ways to narrow. And further, we can narrow by specific jurisdiction if you want to pull just California treatises, or I can actually look at the sources that are populating in my results set, and I can narrow directly to them. So if I know Witkin's been helpful in the past, or it looks like it could be helpful right now, or California criminal defense practice, I can narrow immediately to that resource. Now my results are popping up for the California criminal defense practice, and we have a whole section that discusses murder. So I'm going to go on in. To move around the screen a little bit easier, I will jump around using any of these head note numbers. This will jump me down to where that piece of information has come from, so I know the case that it might be, that where that content came from. Again, the black arrow zips me up to the top. I can also use my table of contents, which is on the left, and open up any of these carets and dive down to different sections that surround the page that I'm on in this source. This helps me get a better understanding of the secondary source I'm in, and I can find out if there's anything else here that might be helpful to my research later. You can see that Lexis is telling me that there's some topic summary reports available. So when I see this and I can see there's some reports to view, I can pop that open. And then I take a look to see, okay, well, what law is it talking about here? If none of these have to do with my issue, then I can just X out and hit my back browser. If I'm interested in any of these issues, I can come on out further. It will provide me a definition for self-defense, the seminal cases, elements that I may need to prove, and more information as well. The nice thing is I can always switch to California, and this law will change to California law, to the California definition, to California seminal cases, and so on. So topic summaries are an executive summary on particular subjects that we have on Lexis, but not everything is out there, so you got to check your reports to see what you get. All right, I'm going to come and run this search one more time. We'll take a look at our cases database this time. And I'll switch to cases, and I'll show you some ways to narrow. If I want to narrow to California cases, I can filter directly to that. I've got some other filters that I may use often as well. This helps me filter by date. I can either swing the little bar over or type in my date restrictions here. I can actually narrow by a specific law firm that may have a case in my site list. But what I really want to bring your attention to are the different colors that you're seeing pop up. These are my terms. I typed in these terms and now they're given specific colors. This way I can see where my terms are being mentioned in each opinion. So I can get a better idea if this is a case I want to spend more time looking at, or if I'm going to scroll on down to the next case in my site list. Any of these pieces of color I can click on and it will jump me to where those terms are being mentioned, so I can take a look at where those terms are lying in my case before I go in and open that case again. Shepard's is talking to me here. I have the analytics to give me an idea that there is that this case is still considered good law, People v. Anderson. There's a number of cases out there that are citing the law of People v. Anderson. My terms look like they're in a good spot, so this may be a case that I want to take a further look at. And we'll go back to those features I showed you at the beginning, perhaps the legal issue trail, and activate my passages when I spend more time in a case. I'm going to back up one more time, and we're going to take a look at that site list again. This time I'm going to show you your Ravel view. This can also be helpful to a researcher. You'll see that we're in our regular case map view right now. That's what this is. The colors are indicating my case map. But I can switch to my Ravel view by clicking this last icon here. This shows me bubbles where case, and each bubble represents a case, to show me the different case relationships a case is making to other cases in my site list. Ravel is pulling from the top 75 cases in your cite list. The bigger the bubble, the more that case is being cited by other cases in your cite list. So I can see that this case up top seems to be the leading precedent that all the cases are coming back and citing. And by clicking it, I'll find out that once again, I'm looking at People v. Anderson. This axis is the higher up on the axis, the higher the court, and the further down in the timeline, the more recent in time. So if I'm looking at some bigger bubbles that might be popping up along the way here, I might say, okay, it looks like that there's some newer cases that are also making that are being cited a lot, and I might want to take a look at some of these newer cases. Now you can see that People v. Houston's popping up, and it was number 6 on my cite list, and I can keep going this way. I can see, oh, there's a new case that just came out. It's making a lot of the same relationships to other cases that I've been looking at, and that's People v. Brooks. So your Ravel view is a nice way to take a look at other cases that seem quite popular for a particular issue in law, and will help you find new cases to take a look at. All right, that closes my session for this time. I want to make sure that you know that there is a live chat support link under your More button where you can live chat with customer support if you have any questions.